A lot of highly driven people will self-destruct and self-sabotage because of this one issue that they haven't resolved yet. Driven Mofos, welcome back to another episode of The Winning Standards. Today, I really want to talk about something that came up last night in the group coaching call that I run every week for our Odyssey community, which are our group of business owners. Normally, they're doing $1 million plus or are scaling. Sometimes we let people in a little bit below, but they've got to be pretty driven and pretty ambitious. And someone asked a question, and it was about being goal-driven. And what they found was that they set goals, they work their ass off to achieve these goals, and then all of a sudden they either start to self-destruct or they self-sabotage or they feel lost after they've achieved this goal. Now, what I spoke about with the community was that this is very common. It's highly common to driven, highly ambitious people. And this is why I called the community the Driven Mofos. Because there's a lot of lazy people out there and they're looking for motivation, they're looking for some sort of help. They might be looking for, trauma recovery, or there's all these fad things out there these days that are supposedly helping people. Now, whether they do or not, I'll leave that up to you. But there seems to be a pattern that highly driven, highly ambitious people don't normally get the help that they need. And they don't get the help that they need because the advice that they get isn't the advice that works for them. I get told all the time, Michael, you need to relax and you need to slow down. That shit doesn't work for me because when I relax and when I slow down, I feel ineffective. I feel non-productive. I feel like I'm letting myself down on my goals. Now, over time, I've learned that there's a better strategy. I do take time off. I recover. I integrate, but very rarely do I just sit around and relax. Like, I don't understand when people go on holidays and they just sit by a pool. What I've found is that most people, when they go and sit by a pool, they start drinking. And I believe that the drinking is the cover up for the guilt or the insecurity that they feel that they can't switch off without alcohol. What I found is that by changing the label to recovery, like my body needs to recover, or I need time to think and integrate, it made it so much easier for me. Because I'm like, I know that if I'm thinking hard, especially during the week, I need to have integration time where I let my thoughts integrate. If I don't, then that causes a huge challenge the following week when you're mentally fatigued. The same thing can happen with pro athletes. They can train really, really hard, but the training hard doesn't get them to where they need to get to. The recovery does. They train hard, that creates muscle damage, and then they need to recover because the healing process creates the strength. The same thing applies in business. But what I spoke about last night to the community was the difference between being goal-driven and being purpose-driven. Most highly driven people are goal-driven, not because they have big goals and big dreams, but because they're trying to get away from their own internal pain or their own internal childhood wounds or issues or whatever. Now, I used to have it where when I would sit on the couch, my mum would kick the door in and tell me that I was being lazy, or if I was sitting on the couch watching TV, she would tell me I was lazy. And so I felt this guilt of sitting around. And so I would just overwork. I would work, sit on the couch to relax, feel guilty, and I only had two options. Binge eat food to pass out, which is the same as what my dad does, but he does it with alcohol. So he'll sit on the couch after a hard day of work and then he'll have 2 or 3 beers. And he says, it helps me to relax. It doesn't help him to relax. It helps him to remove the guilt or the feeling of his lack of worth, which then forces him to go and do something again, or he'll sit there and just feel really guilty that he's not working hard enough. So the alcohol just numbs that thought or that thought process. And I use food as a way of dealing with that. Some people use drugs. But what I found, and this is why this is included in my Thrive Time program, what I found is that when I got really, really clear with my own personal success map in life, and I was really clear about my purpose, my values, my vision, and my mission, everything started to click together. And right now, I'm more purpose-driven than I am goal-driven. So I set goals, but my goals have to align to my mission and my vision. If they don't, they're off track. So a lot of my community will ask me questions like, or they'll say things like, yeah, but you're money-driven. And I'm like, I'm not money-driven. Money is a tool that I use to amplify or to move me towards my vision and mission or to amplify my purpose. It's not something that I really even think about. I like making money because money allows me to amplify everything that I'm doing, but that's about it. Like, I don't stress about money. I don't worry about money. I used to, but I haven't for a fair few years now because it just doesn't really matter. Money will come and money will go, especially in the scaling process. So if you're a business owner and you're listening to this, you will have weeks where you have money and you'll have weeks where you're like, shit, I don't have any money. That's part of growth because you use money to amplify what you're doing. Money is a tool of exchange, but it's also an amplifier. So if you have to hire more staff, you're essentially amplifying your productivity because you hire more people, you train and develop them, you give them the right tools, and now they amplify that through the company. When they do that, if they do a good job, they will amplify the productivity within the organization, which then makes more money. But then you get that money because everyone starts to get burnt out a little bit or they're at full capacity. So then you take some of that money or that profitability and then you go and amplify it again. And that's how companies grow. So if we see money as a tool of amplification and a tool of value exchange, it makes it a lot easier. But then the question is, why do you need money? Most people need money to get away from their pain. And what I discovered many, many years ago now was that if I used money as a way of dealing with my insecurities by buying shit that I don't need, by trying to get away from business, by going on holidays and all that stuff, nothing really worked. So I would go on a holiday and I would feel guilty that I wasn't working. And I felt guilty that I wasn't pushing my own goals forward hard enough. And so I never really enjoyed the holiday anyway. Most business owners I speak to, they say the same thing. They're like, I just can't enjoy a holiday. Like I'm always thinking about work or thinking about business. That's because you're using goals to motivate yourself and you're also using pain as a motivating tool to get your goals. So you're not really goal driven, you're just pain avoidant. And so when someone grows up without a lot of money, or even if they did have a lot of money, they got judged for money. As in, if let's say your parents are a millionaire and you grow up, but you're around other kids whose parents are worth 10, 20, 30, $50 million, you're still the poor kid. So you might feel poor. As you grow up, that wound or that gap becomes a void. That void becomes what you value in the future. So all of our values are actually created from our voids or our sense of missingness when we're younger. If you were fat as a kid or overweight or you felt like you were unattractive, then you probably have a high value of physical exercise, physical fitness, beauty, or something like that. And that's because of how you felt when you were young. It doesn't mean that it's true or not. It's just how you felt. And that creates our void. That void creates our value. So you become driven and motivated to get away from pain. The pain and the insecurities that you felt growing up are your motivators as an adult. But then what you'll find is as you start to deal with those pains, let's say money is one of them. You're a poor kid, it's a void. You work really, really hard, you start making good money and you just start getting ahead. Now, all of a sudden, the pain goes away. And as the pain goes away, you go, shit, this is great now. Now I'm comfortable, I get to relax. I'm going to go buy that new thing that I wanted, that brand new caravan or that brand new, I don't know, I want to go on a 3-week holiday. So you do that, but when you come back, now you're minus the money that you just spent. And then you go, shit, now I'm in pain again. And so you work really, really hard again to push towards the next goal, but it's driven from an insecurity, it's driven from pain. And so most people are pain avoidant. They use pain as their driver. They set goals that help them to get away from that pain, and then they call themselves goal driven. But again, it just creates this vicious cycle, this crazy, shitty loop that most people live in. They live in it financially. They live in it with their career. I mean, speak to most people and they go, I'm just working really, really hard to save for retirement. Why do they want to retire? Because they don't like their career. If you love your career, why do you want to retire? I've never met someone who retires who loves what they do. Right? Even Warren Buffett now is 93 or 94 years of age, one of the greatest investors in history. And last year, he only stepped down from being the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, which is his investment company, because he's getting too old now, right? Like he's 93. He can hardly walk, but he still comes to work every day, goes to the office every day because he loves what he does. And you'll find that there's a common pattern with people who achieve great wealth is that they still work hard. Why do they work hard? E.g. Richard Branson, there's a whole bunch of people because they do things that are purposeful. They don't do things that are pain avoidant. People who are pain avoidant have really obvious patterns. They want to retire. They want to go on holiday all the time. They keep talking about working on their business and not in their business. And those things are important. Like as you grow in the company, you need to spend more time working on it, but they're not afraid to work in it either. They don't get stressed out. It's like, if the business needs me, I just jump back in and I fix things and then I get back out. Whereas too many people fantasize about that shit. They fantasize about financial freedom. Freedom tells you that if their goal is freedom, it's because they feel trapped. They're using the idea of being trapped by money as now a goal where one day they can have financial freedom. But wealthy people don't think like that. Wealthy people keep making more money, not because they need financial freedom, but because they have a bigger reason. They're purposeful, they're mission driven, they're vision driven. They have something bigger to do. So what I've found is that if you're unclear with your success map in life, if you're a business owner, if you're someone who's highly driven, if you're highly ambitious, and you don't have a purpose for why you're doing what you do, you're always going to be on this vicious cycle of using pain as a motivator. You will be more burnt out, you'll be more tired, you'll be more stressed out, you get more frustrated, you'll run off of your emotions, you're probably more fear-driven. I meet a lot of business people who they have a lot of money, but they're scared to spend it, right? They go, oh, it's silly flying business class, it's silly buying a nice car because it doesn't make money. Yeah, but you've got shitloads of money now. What's happening is you're afraid. You're scared that one day you run out of money, so you keep stockpiling it, right? You're like a fucking squirrel that just stockpiles food for winter because it knows that there's going to be no food. But the squirrel eats the food. The person who just saves all their money and doesn't have a lifestyle does so because they're scared. When you're purposeful, your purpose is your why. It's why do you exist? What do you think about all the time? What's the thing that drives you? So for me, it's amplifying greatness. Ever since I was a little kid, all I wanted to do was to help people see their own greatness. I see it in other people, but other people don't see it in themselves. That's why I do what I do. I meet people and I'm like, wow, you could be doing so much better. And it's not because I think that they're doing a shit job. It's just that I see what they have the capacity to become. And so for me, my purpose is to help amplify greatness globally. Now, when does that finish? Well, when 8 billion people across the planet have seen their own greatness. That thing's never going to finish. So even when I work hard, I can work hard for a long period of time, or I shouldn't use the word hard because it's a shitty word. But if I work productively for a period of time and we achieve our goals as a company, I make a decision. I go, right, do I need to recover? Do I need to integrate my thought processes? Do I need to go away to plan more effectively? Like, how do I keep amplifying this greatness? Now, the pressure's not there like it is with fear. When you meet a fear-driven person, they think that they have to do things. And I've gone through other episodes where I talk about needs and wants. When you're needy, you have to do things because you're in survival. And when you're in wants is like a stage up of survival where you're sort of doing okay, but you're not really thriving. You're just doing a little bit better than average, or I guess it would be average. It's like mediocrity, right? So you're out of survival, but now you're mediocre. And so a lot of people run on wants and needs. They do that because they're consistently pain-driven. Okay, and they're trying to avoid the pain that goes on inside their head all the time, that they're not good enough, that they're not smart enough, that they don't have enough money, that they're going to run out of money, that people are going to think that they're not good enough, that they're going to get judged, that they're going to get criticized. These are the things that stop most people and cause self-sabotage and self-destructive behaviors. Okay, it's not a good idea. What will happen is you need to evolve out of that. And this is what I was talking about with one of our community members in Odyssey last night. They were asking me about this and they said, I need to break all my self-sabotage patterns. And I said, you don't break them, you evolve out of them. You evolve into a different operating system. You evolve into a better operating system for your nervous system. So instead of operating out of fear and worry and stress, which again are all fear responses, it's essentially fear is, I could die. That's what fear is. And so when you're stressed because you think that maybe a staff member fucked something up, and now you're worried that a customer will talk badly about your business, which then means you stop getting referrals. And when you don't get referrals, then all of a sudden now your business is going to downsize. You're not going to be able to pay the bills, and then you might lose your house, or you might not be able to provide for your family. It's fear. But you'll say, I'm stressed, or I'm frustrated, or I'm fucked off, or I'm angry. They're all just fear responses. That's all it is. So when you realize that fear creates a whole bunch of these, I guess you could say negative emotions, but almost all emotions are driven from fear. When you realize that, you go, right, I need to switch out and I need to evolve this beyond those fear responses or beyond those old motivators. They'll get you so far. Like, you can work your ass off and yes, you'll achieve a lot with fear. Fear is a great motivator, but it will cause a lot of self-destructive behaviors, right? A lot of athletes run off of fear. But the problem is it creates self-destructive behaviors. If you want to evolve out of that, you've got to become purposeful, purpose-driven. And the question that you've got to ask yourself is, why do I do everything? Why do I do what I do? Why do I wake up in the morning? What do I think about all the time? What's on my mind? What's driven me for the last 10 or 20 years? And it's normally not something extrinsic. It's something intrinsic, which means it's internal, not external. And it'll be something that your brain thinks about consistently. And you've got to be careful that it's not fear-driven, because if you take an overweight person who's sick, they'll say that they think about health, therefore health is important to them. But it's only important to them now because they're sick. Once you remove the sickness, health doesn't become important again. So you want to really look at this in depth. You've got to sit there and really think about it. And this is what I do in my Thrive Time event, is we sit down and we get super clear on it. And we have a lot of people who come from lots of other events that say, I know my purpose. And then when I sit down, I break it down. They're like, crap, now I don't know what it is. And they need some time again to rejig it. And we do it live at the event. But you need to know why you do everything. That why has to become your driver. Once you do that, your life shifts into this flow. And when you live in flow, you don't have to use force all the time to keep trying to achieve. You just wake up in the morning and go, cool, now I know why I'm here. I got shit to do. Let's get to work. And you do it. And then when you need a day off, you go, you know what? I'm tired today. I'm just going to take the afternoon off. Or I need to back off work a little bit because I need to integrate my thoughts. Or you know what? I'm going to go away for 2 weeks and just do some planning. When I go on holidays, most people will say to me, oh, you're lucky you get to go on a holiday. But I'm not really going on a holiday. What I do is I have a couple of days to physically reset. So I normally go and stay somewhere nice. I just chill out for a little bit. I normally catch up on sleep. So I might wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I might go have breakfast. Then I'll go to the gym. Then I come back. I have 1 or 2 hours of just power naps. I might go and do something in the afternoon, go out for a nice dinner with Jess. And then I'm back at like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, go to bed, sleep through and do it again. And I do that for a couple of days until my body's recovered. Once my body's recovered, then all of a sudden I start waking up early again. My energy picks back up and I go, cool, now I'm physically rested. Now I just need time to integrate my thoughts. So I might sit there and I might start planning stuff. What does the next 12 months look like? What does the next 3 months look like? What are the goals of the company? And I do this probably not often enough. I do it maybe about every 6 months now. You'll see me go over to Bali, or I was just talking to Jess about maybe going to Vietnam or somewhere like that. And it's not a hectic, crazy holiday, right? If it's one of those holidays where you've got to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, get on a plane, fly here, then get out, get on a bus, go do this, go see this, that's probably not helping you integrate. Now, if you want to go on a trip, I call that a trip, not a holiday. A trip is where you go do shit. A holiday is where your body and brain just relaxes. That's what it is to me anyway. And so I plan these holidays normally about every 6 months where I can just relax, decompress, retune my thoughts. I normally have about 2 weeks away. And then if I want to go on a trip somewhere where we go and see and do a whole bunch of shit, I might even plan a holiday at the start of the trip and a holiday at the end of the trip. So I recover at the start, go and do 2 weeks of touring somewhere or doing something. And then I come back and I have like a week where I just relax and chill. Now, it takes time to get there. I couldn't do that when the business was running on empty and I was pushing hard, but now I can. That's where you want to get to, okay? I really want you to think about, after this episode, keep asking yourself the question, why do I do what I do? How do I want to be remembered when I'm not here? What is the purpose of my life? Why do I do everything? And if you keep asking those questions, you'll nail it down. Now, if you can't nail it down, come along to Thrive Time where we help build your success map. We've had some of the most successful people on the planet come to that event, including Ryan Lim, who is the ex-head of Air Asia, Wayne, who own Rising Sun Films. They do all the digital animation for The Hobbit, all the Marvel movies and all that stuff. It's, you know, we've had some pretty big heavy hitters there, a bunch of guys from the Redbacks, a bunch of AFL guys, but we get mums, dads, everybody coming along to that as well. Because once you've got your success map, now you've got the map to know where you're going. I mean, fuck, how many people wake up in the morning and they rush out of bed, they rush to work. And if you ask them, like, why do you do everything you do in life? What are you trying to achieve? Where are you trying to get to? What does life look like at the end? What's the big mission and vision that you've achieved? What's your impact or your legacy? Most people can't clearly define it. They sort of have a bit of an idea, but it's not clear. To me, that's like getting in the car, thrashing to get somewhere, and someone asks, where are you going? And you go, I don't know. You're just driving hard, wasting a lot of fuel, but you actually don't know where you're going. And how do you know that when you get there, you're not going to go, shit, this isn't the spot, and then need to get back in the car and drive somewhere and hope you've got enough time left in your life to achieve the thing that you want to achieve? Most people, like my grandpa, he was the strongest man in my family. I watched him work his ass off his whole entire life. And I remember 2 weeks, he got diagnosed with cancer and he got given 2 months to live. But the last 2 weeks of his life when he was frail, he would cry most days and say, I never got to do the things that I want to do. And that etched itself in my brain going, you got to live the life that you want to live. Don't worry about the criticism. Don't worry about the judgment. Don't worry about what other people think. Don't even worry about what Jess thinks. You have to do what you're born to do. And that's being purposeful in life. And that's been tested so much. It's been tested by Jess. It's been tested by my family, where they consistently told me that I was crazy. And now all of a sudden, they tell me that I'm doing great. But at first it's hard because they don't see what you see inside your own mind. That's why the vision needs to be clear, and you have to learn how to communicate effectively, and you have to become a better leader, because when you do that, you can lead other people through the vision. If you can't communicate effectively and you're not clear, it's hard to communicate that to your intimate partner. And so we have a lot of business owners who come to Odyssey and they say, my partner doesn't understand. And I say, well, how would they understand when you're not even fucking clear what you want? If you're not clear, how the hell are they going to be clear? And then secondly, if you've never worked on leadership and communication skills, who's leading who? Does your husband or wife lead you, or do you lead them? How is it? Are you able to sit down and communicate effectively what you want as your mission and your vision, and then how that incorporates with their vision and mission? And then those two things link in order to create a family vision and mission. And then now all of a sudden you're on track. If you don't do that stuff, there's always going to be conflict in the relationship. And this is why most couples have conflict. If you've got, let's say it's a husband who's trying to build a business and a wife who's trying to build a family, she sits there and looks and goes, fuck, you work too much, right? You're taking away from the family. And you're sitting there going, I go to work because of the family. I want to provide everything for them. And so you got one person who's trying to provide everything for the family, and the other one perceives it as having everything taken away from the family because the thing that they want is time. Whereas you're trying to give them the financial security and the financials. And so without both of those two parties being really, really clear on what they want to achieve and the mission that they're trying to accomplish individually, and then how it clips together to create something even greater for the family, shit falls apart. I've worked with a few people recently who have gone through a divorce, and when I look at it, they were the perfect couple. One person worked really hard. In fact, this isn't always the case, but this is how it's been with the people that I've been working with. The male is providing financially for the family and working their ass off and provide an amazing life for the whole family, right? They get to go on holidays. They get to do nice things. They live in a beautiful house. The kids go to nice schools. They get all the clothes and the shoes and shit that they want. And so the man thinks that he's providing everything for the family. On the other hand, the wife sits there and looks, because she's got other friends who are stay-at-home mums and things like that, and their husbands don't run businesses. They sit there and look and go, well, you know what? I don't have the family that they have because their partners get home from work at 5 o'clock every night and spend all their time with family. My family's not good enough. And this seems to have been a pattern with the couple of the people that I've worked with. And they weren't able to communicate how they effectively make the family dynamic greater by having one person who works hard and one person who looks after the family. You've essentially got one person who cares and nurtures and one person who provides. What a fucking epic dynamic. But because they weren't able to communicate that, and they weren't able to communicate it in a way to show that they could amplify and live a greater life by having both of those two things, what happened was she wanted this perfect, 2.5 family with the picket fence and all that type of shit, with a husband who's home at 5 o'clock every night and leaves at 9 o'clock in the mornings, home, and, has weekends with the kids and everything like that. But didn't realize that both of those things come at a cost. Having a husband that's like that has a cost, and that is that you don't have as much money as what you could or would want. And on the other hand, the husband didn't see it because he would criticize her for not working as much as, maybe what she could have. He would judge her and criticize her and give her shit about money all the time and the money that she spent on the family and so on. And so they had this consistent friction until the family broke apart. And then when the family broke apart, then they both started dating other people. And she went out and dated, someone with less money and less work ethic and all that type of shit. But now she's struggling financially, and the kids don't really get what they want when they're with her because she's poor. And then on the other hand, he has a ton of money, but he's dating girls that aren't as motherly or aren't as warm. They're highly driven, highly ambitious, but they don't really spend a lot of time together as a family because both parties are working hard. And so they both learn a really valuable lesson. And this has happened in 3 couples that I've worked with over the last 3 months now, who were both highly successful business owners whose families fell apart. And I'm privately coaching them again to hopefully help to rebuild them in a better way so it doesn't happen again. Yeah, if they saw it for what it was and if both of them were clear on their vision and mission, and now they both say to me, because I know both of the parties, they both say, shit, if we'd done Thrive Time, we probably would have had our marriage. And they're both learning harsh lessons because the 3 couples, the relationships fell apart in, not so great ways, that now they got so much resentment they're not getting back together. But this is what happens when you are unclear. Driven mofos, spend some time thinking about this. Hope this episode helps. I guarantee it's a game changer. When you go from goal-driven and fear-driven into purpose and mission-driven, holy shit, everything changes. It's like you've been driving in second or third gear most of your life, and then all of a sudden you're on the highway and you found six. The revs are less, but you're cruising along the highway and you're going faster than ever. And that's what happens when you're aligned with everything you do. Driven mofos, have a great day. Keep kicking ass. I appreciate you all. And thanks for everyone for rating and reviewing this podcast. See you next time. Most people waste their life, and I just don't want you to be one of them.